Hola from beautiful Barcelona, and today I want to share with you another 21 things you didn't know about Formula One. Compliments of Canon.com, the world's best online staff training. Let's kick it off with how are the positions determined for the national anthem formation? All the drivers, 20 of them, standing on the grid prior to a race. Well, if you go back to pre-COVID times, all 20 drivers were set up across the track. So in this shot from the Brazil 2019 Grand Prix, we had Max on pole, Sebastian was second, so there's the first two. Then we had Lewis, who was third. He goes just one to the left, as we see it, of Max Verstappen. And then Valtteri was fourth. And then all the odd numbers go out to the left and all the even numbers go out to the right. However, during COVID, the drivers must be distanced. And so now we have two rows, and we start off with the first two in the middle. But for some reason, they changed the orders, and of the 10 drivers on the front, which are the first 10 positions, your first position is on the right of the middle two, and the second is on the left. And then 4, 6, 8 and 10 go out to the left, and 3, 5, 7 and 9 go out to the right. And it's the same on the back row as well. I'm not sure why they changed that positioning, but that's the case these days. What watch has Carlos Sainz recently been wearing? If that's a question that's been bothering you, I can answer it for you. Here he is wearing the RM1101, the Robert Mancini, in titanium with the special Italian strap. And it's from Richard Mille, which sponsors 2 F1 teams. And I'll be doing a video on that coming up in the next few months. Despite the fact that a lot of us in Formula One have been vaccinated, we are still required to get tested at regular intervals. Certainly the countries that we go to demand it. When we fly in, we have to produce a negative PCR test. Now, a couple of you have asked if the COVID tests are painful. They're not so much painful, they're annoying because it's quite tickly when that thing gets right up the back of your nose. And cost-wise, they can be anywhere from €100 to a couple of €100, and I've even told that perhaps even more in Britain. Which photographers get access to the podium? It's only one photographer, and he shoots for Formula One. You'll find him on Instagram here. Go and follow him. It's good stuff. On the subject of the podium, you'll notice that the only time you see a video cameraman up there is after the shout for "let's have the champagne." Prior to that moment, you won't see a cameraman or woman anywhere on the podium. Segueing from cameraman on the podium to the announcer on the podium, the voice that you hear on the television and at the track is that of an Australian, Bob Constanduris. And he's been doing this for, well, I think probably since about 1995. He's been to almost every race. And you might have noticed that we don't any longer hear, "now it's time for champagne." We hear something else because the Ferrari brand of, well, I think that's Prosecco, is not technically a champagne, and Bob can't call it champagne. Any accident registers a G-force of 15 Gs or higher, a signal is automatically sent to the powers that be, the teams, FIA, F1, etc., and the medical vehicle is immediately dispatched. Following on from that, many of the emergency vehicles around the track, like the fire trucks and the cranes, must have their crew in their vehicle, and the engine must be turned on. And that's for obvious safety reasons. The quicker those crews are out to an injured driver or a stricken vehicle, the quicker they can remedy the situation. And case in point would be Romain Grosjean back in Bahrain last year. In these COVID times, the TV crews are actually given a piece of core flute to stand on next to the track when they're doing their grid presentations. And they're not allowed to move off that spot. That ensures that they are kept the right distance apart from everyone. And I imagine it's done on a pecking order, with those that perhaps are more important up the front and those less important down the back. Another question that comes up quite often is, can I buy a paddock ticket? No, you can't. You can't just buy a ticket to wander around in the paddock. It's a closed working area. But there are non-working people in the paddock, and they're typically guests of a team, or perhaps they've bought a paddock club package or a hospitality package with a team that includes a couple of visits into the paddock. But it's rare that they're left to wander around on their own. More than likely, they're guided down perhaps to the garage to sit at the back of the garage and have a look, and then they're taken back up to their corporate suite. But the short answer is you can't just buy a ticket that gets you into the paddock. As a photographer, are we allowed to shoot in any position around the track? Well, pretty much yes. We're not assigned positions. That's what a lot of people think. Nope, that does not happen. We're allowed to go pretty much wherever we want. Obviously not in a dangerous zone like a red zone area, which are marked on certain track maps. But Otherwise, we're free to roam and get to as many spots as we want around a track in a session or a race. This is Antti Ferula. He's a Finn, and he's Valtteri Bottas's human performance coach, physio trainer. He used to actually coach Finnish Olympic athletes, and back in 2011 and 12 was the trainer for Lewis Hamilton at McLaren. Which media centre so far this year has had the best food? Without a doubt it was Imola. And at the bottom of the shortlist, probably Barcelona. Not that there's anything terribly wrong with it, but Imola was a standout. Although we haven't had Monaco yet, and we haven't had Melbourne. Both of those can be a little ordinary. After quali and after a race, all of the drivers are required to attend the TV media pen and do interviews there that they've arranged pre, and there's a number of TV networks that set up socially distanced around that media pen. And then they walk over to a different section where all the print media are housed and do those interviews there. I don't know whether you've ever noticed, but from time to time you'll see drivers running the track, perhaps even riding a bicycle around the track. When are they allowed to do that? Well, at the end of most days, the track is deemed open, and at that point anyone who has a permanent pass can access the track for a ride, a run, or even just a walk. This is Nicholas Latifi driving a Williams a couple of years ago, and you'll notice on the back of the car here there is a green light. That denotes that the driver doesn't have a super licence, and I guess is almost a learner driver, and other drivers would need to be a little bit more cautious of that driver. Typically you'll see this in probably FP1 when a junior driver is given a crack at an F1 car. But how do you get a super licence? Well, there are a number of requirements, including being a minimum of 18 years of age, holding an international grade A competitor licence, having a valid driving licence, passing an FIA theory test, having completed at least 80% of each of 2 full seasons of any single-seater championship, and having accumulated at least 40 points in certain series. If sleeping comfort is important to you, take your own pillow with you. I do. I take this one, this little small memory foam pillow, take it everywhere. That way, I'm guaranteed of a better night's sleep. Do you know where the support race paddocks are? Well, typically they're a distance away from the Formula One paddock, and that was very noticeable to me at the last race, Barcelona, when we would see this plethora of young drivers and trainers walking to their cars which were in Parc Ferme at the time. F1 is very organised in terms of how people gain access to the track, and everyone working in the sport has to have one of these passes. Now I've got a purple permanent media pass, but there are a variety as you can see here, and each of these passes provides the wearer with different access to the track. And I may well do a video in the future about what access each of these passes provides the wearer. If a driver has an accident and has to get out of the car, he can certainly take the steering wheel off to get out, but he must put it back. And recently I watched Robert Kubica have a darn time trying to get his steering wheel back on an Alfa Romeo in FP1 at Barcelona. He just couldn't get it on. He tried from the left side, from the right side. Eventually he got it back on, and he needs it on because the marshals and even the crew have to push that car sometimes and need to steer it. What do drivers eat during a race weekend? Well, that's carefully planned, calorie counted, and they have to have enough energy obviously to drive the car, but not too much energy such that they put on weight. So their trainer will often organise their food and menu with the kitchen, and often we see Angela Cullen on her scooter heading from the motorhome, where Lewis sleeps, to the paddock, where the hospitality suite is in the kitchen, and then heading back to take Lewis's breakfast to him. Thanks for getting through to the end of the video. Oh, and a couple of you have asked, what was the Easter egg in the last video I did? Well, it was a promo code for a download from ProStarPics.com, and it took, I think, about a day for someone to twig. And the reason I know that is because I can tell when somebody claims that promo code and downloads a picture. So keep a lookout for that sort of thing in the future, and head to ProStarPics.com for all of my digital images. You can order my F1 driver books at kimillman.com. If you haven't as yet clicked the like button, I invite you to do so now. I'll wait for you to do it if you wish. Oh, and while you're there, subscribe. Yep, thank you. And hit the notifications button if you want notifications of new releases. And for my best pics live from the track and during the week, you'll find them at Instagram by searching at Kim Illman. Thanks for watching, and stay passionate. and here's our final one. I had to have a laugh at this. The piss box, which has a different meaning in English than it does here in Spanish.